Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files here on the J Free 906 podcast channel. Tom and Seth, guys, man, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yep, we got a lot to cover.
It was a classic, great episode.
Or uncover, maybe. Yeah.
Uncover, yes.
Yes, I thought it was, uncover. Yeah, I thought it was one of the best ones we've had to see. They've all been pretty good this year, right? Haven't really had too many of the like fillers, the filler episodes. But
rewatching this one, there was very little that I would kind of skip ahead to, because sometimes I'll rewatch it and be like, okay, I got this part down. But this one, every time I rewatched it, it just got better.
Yeah, I thought so too. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us here tonight. We appreciate your coming along for the review of The Curse of Oak Island, Season 13, Episode 16, Raising the Stakes. It's funny, they gave it that name, Raising the Stakes, but I thought stakes had very little to do with the excitement of this particular episode. It was like the low part. Well, I guess not the low part.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, the boulder was cool, but the star thing was pretty cool too.
Yeah. You're raising the... We're kind of doing the reverse of what the Templars did with all of this, right? They were bringing the heavens down to earth, and now we're kind of raising it back up and connecting what they were seeing.
Yeah.
So I kind of
go below and all that.
There's a whole bunch of that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going around.
I mean, as there is on Oak Island.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure, man. It was a good episode, though. I know that we had a lot of fun talking it up while we were in Discord. It was a busy one. We always chatted up during the commercials, and man, we had a lot to go on, and a lot of good help from the folks in Discord as well. And I told Maya, I said, make sure you remind me of something that I forgot to tell everyone. Maya and Christy have created a questionnaire, a question. What do you call that? It's like not a PowerPoint, a spreadsheet of questions. So whenever we have a guest on, or maybe even just a show where you want to ask a question, but you don't want to put it out in the chat and the live chat that's going on right now, you can send a message through Facebook Messenger to Maya or to Christy, and they will put the question on the list for me. Then I can see it and make sure we have it later. So we have to make sure that they have the way to get a hold of you through Messenger. You just friend her, either Maya or Christy, in Facebook, and you'll be able to send them a message or maybe put a post in there or something. But that's how it's going to work, so that we can get those questions to us, and then I can ask of our guest, or we can answer it on the show as we go along through the podcast. So thank you for doing that, Maya. They went through and put this thing all together because they thought, well, you need a nice, easier way to be able to get these questions for people, so you don't have to do it during the podcast. And that's an awesome thing. So I really appreciate their work on that. And then we have another thing that, again, Discord was lighting up last night when we were all talking and watching the show. So it was, we have a lot to cover. So I think we should probably get to it. We also have a giveaway tonight. The giveaway is going to be, and I'll show a quick picture here. It's the Curse of Oak Island hat and the Curse of Oak Island gloves. We're still kind of cold up there, so still something good to have.
Those are very cool.
Yeah, I know, right? And I think Michelle Tomeyer donated these for us again, as she does so much stuff. Oh, man, she does a lot for us. We appreciate it. So, but we'll talk about that as we go along here in just a little bit.
This show I always knew sorry, never mind. It's a tangent to the Skull and Crossbones, but I was just going to say this show and Templars have totally changed how I view Skull and Crossbones. And it always makes me wonder.
Exactly. Yes, it has.
What were a bunch of pirates doing with John the Baptist's head? And anyway, so really,
unless they were, there you go, right there too. Yeah. Unless those pirates happen to be former descendants of what could be the Templars over time.
Protectors of knowledge, keepers of certain relics and items of power.
The glove.
You look at the Skull and Crossbones. The first time I ever seen them on a gravesite when we're down in down in Mahone Bay and all around that area, and I'm looking at these old grave markers from the 1700s, and they've got these Skull and Crossbones on them, and I'm going, what the heck is this all about?
Yeah, you would think that would be like a shameful thing to have on your tombstone if you were a pirate. You're engaged in these nefarious activities.
Yeah,
anyway, let's go.
All right. Sorry, guys.
Let's go.
All right, so let's get started with it, shall we? And as always, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like the content of the show we do here for you tonight, please consider giving us a thumbs up. We appreciate it very much as we go along. All right, let's roll. Raising the Stakes, episode number 16. And as you saw here, the guys started off the show last night in the war room. And they got everybody together because, as you know, on last week's episode, they were putting in the case on what was it, Top Pocket Fine, TPF?
TPF.
Yeah, Talk Pocket Fine. Yep.
And after and you heard Marty sitting right at the table right there. He was like, after all the pomp and circumstance that we went through for this thing, they can chew through anything.
Yep.
Yeah. I would not want to have been in the room when he first found out about that.
Oh, no, that'd have been rough.
Yep. I feel even more sorry for the poor guy that had to break it to him.
I know. Well, they were all standing around in the money pit that day, and it was like Vanessa was just like, not mine.
Yeah, not mine.
Well, Vanessa and them, Rick and them, Terry and Rick and Vanessa, they were in Vegas today.
They're in Vegas,
show. Yeah, that was pretty cool. A little question and answer thing going on. They answered Tom's question about 10X. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Very cool.
All right, so they're in there to discuss TA Shaver. Thank you, 444. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you to help support the show. They're in there and they're talking about that TPF, the one that got bound up, and they had to decide to move somewhere else. So if they're looking at the board there and they're putting their little coins on there, that's where TPF is. Basically in between those two caissons in this dark blue circles you see right here. They went right down the center of them, or right in between them, and it's right in between the head and shaft and the corner of the chapel shaft right there. That's where they went down. That's the one that got bound up and couldn't take it any further. There it is, a picture of it there, very close to exactly where they had it marked. But they had to decide where else could they go. This is just a little. This was the little a little
animation
simulation. Thank you. I was at a loss for a word. A simulation of what they went through. Following a different caisson. They're actually following two, and then the backfill in those were binding it all up. And yeah, I don't know. The torque on this thing just is not as much as you get out of the oscillator, of course, but. Got it all messed up. And that's the oscillator right there that they will eventually, they said they're going back to TPF. So they're going to end up picking this thing up down over top of it once they get the rest of the crane in place. They're going to have to use this to keep that caisson going to continue it down. So once they get the parts in for it to make it down from 8 foot down to 7. So they'll get that going. Let's see. All right. So they showed this area here, this wide area here, talking about this is their area of concentration, part of the season here, what the caissons are going to be putting in. So this was the main part. These were the boreholes that they were sampling and getting a high concentration of gold and silver in the water and stuff like that. This thing is moved all around. They had the blob, the baby blob, different places like
Peacock.
that. The Peacock, it's all basically in the same general area right here where they're going to look. And as you see, that other circle over here was the old Dunfield dig that was actually a cone-shaped hole. Started off at 100 feet, ended up with 10 at the bottom. And I feel confident he missed it completely, poor guy. H.5-8.5 was a one that Scott had mentioned that last night when they were in the war room talking about it, and it was the one that they had gotten that drill bit, that old drill bit from the early 1800s up in their casing. They brought that up in their 6-inch borehole casing. They brought it up, and so that's where they wanted to go. It's also the suspected place of the Pit Plato coin. Came up in that same general area, so that's where Scott wanted to go, but it's not really where they went. They didn't go down. I think that's where they're going to put a caisson right in this area. But where they ended up going was over here on the other side of the chapel shaft corner over there. We'll see that here in just a second. We'll see how where they ended up going with it.
The exact opposite of what I would have done.
Well, they really, yeah.
Between the two, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, here it was. The first one was right here.
Yeah.
The one that got bound up, and they simply moved right over here to the other corner of the chapel shaft.
Chapel shaft. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
probably too hung up on the History Channel, at least what they're showing us, their drawing of the solution channel to where they're putting it. To me, I'm like, well, are you gonna get in the solution channel even where the way over there? But
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's going to be on the far corner of it.
Oh yeah, they definitely know a lot more than I do. That
Yeah,
goes without
and
saying.
again, this is just a summary of where it is, if that can be a word to use on this, where they're going over here with this other spot, which was over here.
Yeah.
In that corner, kind of over there. It's only a few feet away from where, TPF was put in. Yeah, but they're going over here over K7, basically over that side. And again, I think that, again, the solution channel diagram on here is just a best guess, I think, from the drawings. I don't think that's exactly right, but I think they know better than what you'll see in a drawing from Prometheus on here. So, all right. So, let's get rid of that. There we go. So this is where they're at now. That's where they're going now on this next one. And there they are side by side. You see how close they are together to one another. But they said they're not going to hit that backfill in this one. So
crazy.
Yeah, it really kind of is.
Yeah, I really liked Rick's, the reason why he named it Karma, his outlook on it of like, hey, maybe we're not meant to dig there. Maybe we are supposed to be over here and the island's doing us a favor. This is our good karma.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping for anyway. So we'll see how that karma works out. But
right.
Yeah, it's interesting, this drill. I really like this drill, and I don't think that I captured that picture, but on it. But it when they pull it up, here it is right here. They actually put it down in the hole, they spin it, and then they pull it back up, and then they spin it backwards the other
way. Yeah, it's cool.
And it throws all the dirt off of it over in the pile, so they can go scoop it up and then have Gary metal detected and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's current, and they got the lid on it for at this moment. They put the lid on it. You can see right there. Not sure exactly why, but I noticed, and they never said how did you guys catch? Did they say how deep it was at this point anytime during the show? Did they say how deep they were?
How deep they were with Karma?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Their target was 160 or something, but.
Yeah, well, I think they said, well, maybe it was TPF1, but they were talking about getting down to 170 to 200.
Yep.
I thought I heard him say something like that.
In that range, yep.
In that range, yep. So, but it kept coming up dry, moist soil or, damp soil, but dry. I mean, for the most part, there was no water, in other words, yet. So who knows how deep they were. They never really said. This as we go along here tonight too, folks, I mean, this, as we said, this was a fantastic episode, and it really wasn't here in the money pit that made it a good episode. It was everywhere else. I mean, this was good. I'm glad to see them finally getting this going, the whole Caisson program going in here. But
yeah, it's cool to see how quick they can pivot too.
Yeah. This thing's going to dig a lot faster. I think they're going to get good results.
That thing's moving.
It truly is. All right, so here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. So let's jump over to the swamp, the North Swamp or the North Bog, as Rick has been calling it. And here's another shot about where they're working. So they're kind of working the last bit of this end right here. Nolan's, you're looking kind of southwest in this picture right now. So you're on the north end of the swamp looking southwest. You see here is where they were working on the south end of the swamp, and they covered it all back up, making it look pretty again.
Okay.
This is the driveway that leads from lot 8, lot 9 place going up to Nolan's house.
Yeah, Nolan's house would be over on the left. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Over here on the left. So they're still working this area, and they got to say, right off the bat, they find another stake, and they call this 8-sided stake. And I got to be honest with you, folks. I haven't put a whole lot of credence into these stakes personally.
No.
we saw a stack of logs that had all been points on the end of them, and they were finding them one after another down on the southern end of the swamp. But here's these, and we talked about possible fish weirs. We talked
Yeah.
about, a lot of different things on this, but they have kept a very, um a lot of importance. They put a lot of importance
Yeah.
into these things.
Well, they chart everything, right? They log everything, pun intended.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Every single one of them that they found, they brought Steve Guptill out to have him mark it with his uh, GPS and know exactly where it was, how high was it, how much
Yep.
above sea level it was, the whole thing. And it has brought some curious results doing that.
There's
Um,
Nolan's house or garage right behind Gary there. Yep.
that's the edge of the house right there
Mm.
of Nolan's house. So that's how close they are to the property. You could see his Nova Scotia flag flying right there. And here's a look of a bunch of them. And 8-sided, they were really pushing this whole 8-sided thing and all that. And again, I'm just, I don't know. But it gets a little deeper when they go along. And these stakes, and we'll talk about this a little bit more about their dating of these stakes and how old they are. But it's obvious that these portions of the stake, they're all looking about the same length, and that's because they were buried in the muck up to that point, and what was above in the water or above that to get air has rotted away over time.
Yep.
And that's what you got left. And we know that the swamp is very, very good at preserving wood.
Yeah. Mud, a mixture of mud and peat moss, and it'll stay forever.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting right there alone. All right. So Gary's metal detecting a little bit, and as soon as another scoop comes up, he gets a hit, and he gets a hit on this particular, what he's calling a coin or a token or something like that, based upon its weight. I think he was kind of referring to. It came up non-ferrous, and he was thinking it's either lead or maybe got a little bit of copper content into it. Didn't think it was silver. He didn't. So they take it over to the lab to get a look at this thing. And they put it up on the board. They had Emma go through and analyze it. Have you noticed how they haven't been taking us through those machines anymore? Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
They stopped telling us over and over and over again about how the machines work. Thank you, Prometheus, for finally hearing us and not doing that. But yeah, they're going to take a look at this coin. Here it is there. And somebody had mentioned to us about these two dots right here. Somebody had sent me an email and was talking about these two dots. There is a one hole that's on the one end, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But they were talking about these. I don't think that these two dots were holes. At least they didn't indicate on the scan, but we'll get a better look at that here in just a minute. But this thing turns out, and we talked about this last week, turns out to be a George Washington Memorial Token. It was created in February, or for the funeral or the service, a ceremony for him on February 22nd, 1800. Now, and there's the one hole that you see right there that was drilled into it because it was meant to be worn as a, over your neck, as a neck, necklace or some, kind of coin you'd wear over your neck. So, and then the urn on the back. There was a couple of them that we talked about last week. One of them had the skull and crossbones on the back with a bunch of words and whatnot. And the other ones had an urn on the back.
Yep. There's different, I'm going to say, makes and models of this and versions of this same coin out there. So depending on what they're made of, there's some that are made of gold, some that are made of silver, some made of silver and copper. Depending on the condition, the mint, the type, they could be worth anywhere from $50 to $50,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, depending on what you got.
Yeah. Now, so Washington died in late 1799, and they had this service for him in 1800, and that's what these coins were made for. Now, here comes the big question. And first, the coins were made by this gentleman right here, and his name was Jacob Perkins. We know that Washington was a Mason. And there's been a lot of speculation talking about the Freemasons becoming Masons. And before that, they were the Knights of Christ or the Knights of Malta. all the way back to the Knights Templar, and making their way through different rebrandings all the way through to the Americas and becoming the Masons. Both of these gentlemen were Masons, as were many of the founding fathers were Masons. And this is the man who actually designed that coin, that commemorative coin. And you said you were talking about what else he had done. Was that you, Tom, that was referencing how he was instrumental in designing many of the actual coins?
Well, it wasn't me, but yeah, I did see where he was the guy that was one of the original designers of the mint for coinage, etc. in the States, and was instrumental in creating stuff that could not be counterfeited.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yep. Yeah. So an important guy. Now, here comes the big question about, and folks, we're going to get to that. What you saw in the thumbnail, that's huge. That's coming up a little bit later. We're going to be talking about that. That's a really interesting find, but we'll get there. So hang with us. So stay tuned for that. Okay. So Jacob Perkins, made it, and somebody. Now, here's the thing. You got Court Lindahl and his brother Bruce. Now, they presented back in 2018. Court and Bruce were under the theory, or worked on the theory, that proceeds, or some of the funds for funding the Revolutionary War, were from Oak Island treasure. That it was the temple of the Templar Knights' original treasure taken out of Jerusalem that had made its way all the way over to North America and was used to help fund the Revolutionary War, which I kind of like this whole theory. It's one of my favorites. And I got that from this man right here, Court Lindahl. I was glad to see that they brought him back to talk a little bit, and they didn't bring him back, but they went and revisited his original presentation, I should say.
Back to the editing room and dug out some old tapes.
Yeah, they went and got some of the old tape they had discarded and decided to pull it out and show it again, which I think was great. And here's just a quick picture of them. They were walking. I was wondering what the heck this thing was over here, but they were walking along the island, and they were showing Court. They took him out to this, or Bruce, because actually Court was on TV from home in California, and Bruce, his brother, they walked him out there to show him a few things. And
it was on the north shore of the island. I wonder if that was one of the docks that Nolan had out in front of his property.
Maybe, yeah, it could be. Oh, could be part of a dock, maybe. Yep. Yeah, I saw that back behind him there, and I was like, "What is that?" It kind of looks funny. It does look like there's a ladder or something right there on the side. They took him out to show him this stone that had been carved, that was on Oak Island, and it shows this tree on it, and these words, or this, maybe they're letters, maybe they're not, EVAN, and then there's another letter down here. And this was on the beach on Oak Island. And here's an interesting little tidbit here.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that A right there. Now, if that's not a Mason A, I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. If you look at those, what we think if we spin this thing sideways are letters. But are they letters or are they symbols?
Symbols.
They could be symbols.
Or it's one of those things that Ghost of Bacon could, decode for us.
Jake, where's Jake when we need him, right? He's out there somewhere, maybe.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if they're symbols or not, but interesting.
I noticed that A, and I went, "Oh, okay, come on, give me a break, would you?"
Now, they went out there, and this stone, they've known about this stone for a long time. There was also one that had a G, and then they put a square around it and stuck something over it to try to preserve it. But it was a G for, God. It was, I think that's what it represented to the Masons, the G.
Mason thing,
Yeah. They found one with that big G on it, and also the HO stone. So there's been a lot of them found, but Evan wrote that. I don't know if that's Evan or symbols, like Tom was saying, because, well, if you look at the tree, let's go back, the tree would be upside down. So flip that around, and that E is going to be on the bottom facing up with the forks of it facing upward.
And then is it a menorah?
Actually, I don't know, but I think it's representing this. The appeal to heaven.
Oh, I meant the E.
Could be.
I mean,
probably doesn't have the right amount of arms and all.
No, it doesn't.
If you flip that upside down, could it be the crucifixion, 3 crosses?
Oh,
Wow. Now that's the speculation room going.
Now we're going down a rabbit hole. Okay.
But
yeah,
it was a good go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Seth.
was going to say, I just thought they were fans of Christmas trees.
Well, yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
Nova Scotia does
So
have nice trees.
13 branches. It was the Appeal to Heaven commissioned by
13.
George Washington in 1775.
Mm.
So, I mean,
That was his trademark, or one of his, I'm going to call it a trademark, but one of his symbols that they used throughout the war, right?
yes, it was Appeal to Heaven.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff there's
Yeah.
stories about George Washington being visited in the woods. We're not going to go down that road tonight. That's not where we're headed, but
So, like, some people in the chat were kind of raising the question, which I felt was a fair one, where they're like, okay, if there was treasure and the founders got it, why were the troops suffering? And why were the colonies, and the Congress struggling to fund stuff?
Right.
Maybe it wasn't, monetary treasure. Maybe it was more in the lines of, we need these certain relics, so just to reinforce their belief that this was an appeal to heaven. This was
yeah,
the creation of
Or there
something
wasn't as
new.
much there as they needed.
yeah,
Right? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or maybe they couldn't get it. Couldn't get to it.
yeah.
Had the same problems. But
There's a lot of things we could look at into this whole thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think more of like they were after the artifacts and the items that
I
held
think so
power.
too.
Yep, it could be.
I think so too. I really do. Because we know how important this whole religious sect of our portion of the Knights Templar are, working their way all the way through the Knights of Christ and Knights of Malta, Masons, Freemason. We know how important all of that is to them, right? So the reason for Nolan's cross being placed on the island, and some other artifacts or things that I think they were. I think you're exactly right. Now here comes the whole speculation about this coin. Okay, they find this coin in the swamp, and it was pretty deep. It was down several feet down when they were digging out with the excavator. They found it pretty deep, and yet there it is in the swamp. This coin was made in the 1800, correct?
Yep.
Why in the heck would a coin that is commemorating George Washington, who would have been the enemy of the people who were in control of Nova Scotia, why would that coin be on Oak Island?
Maybe
Who could have possibly brought it there?
Yeah. See, the thing with the coin, and when we talked about this earlier, the thing with the coin is the Revolutionary War was what, 1770 something to 1780 odd.
Yeah, 83 to
83. That's when they signed the
75 to
treaty.
83.
That's when they signed the treaty, and the British went home, and the Loyalists all took off from the eastern seaboard, New England, and the Loyalists all came up and settled in places like Nova Scotia, Oak Island.
Yep.
Over here in New Brunswick, they called them, United Empire Loyalists is what they were called.
Yep.
So this is all taking place. This medallion is dated 1800. So what's an 1800 medallion doing? It wasn't from the people that came and got the money.
Right.
Somebody came back later.
Yeah.
Somebody had to have come back later.
Because everything important that the money was used to fund,
right,
if it was
right,
was before 1800.
Yep. Now, I've always liked the whole idea of the money or some of this, the treasure being used to fund the Revolutionary War. I have been a fan of that idea. Whether it's true or not, we simply don't know for sure, but I'm a fan of that idea. And a lot of these things kind of add up to that. Now, here, let me go out on a speculation for you a little bit. If let's say that they did come back in the early to mid 1700s or maybe even the 1600s and took some of the treasure of Oak Island out, but they didn't get it all. Or maybe they did get it all, but they weren't sure that they got it all. And they used it to fund the Revolutionary War. Okay.
Or they weren't allowed to take it all.
Maybe that, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
For some reason, okay, they might have left some behind. Now, again, this is speculation on my part, but let's just say that in 1795, now Washington was president until 97. He died in 99, and then this commemorative coin was made in 1800. So let's just say in 1795, wind gets out that these guys or not 75, a little bit later, because they were digging down and they found all these platforms going down, 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 right? Then it flooded. They stopped. So about 1804 or 1803, 4, they're starting to try to get investors. And I think that was the original Truro company, I
It was,
believe,
yeah.
to get investors so that they could continue this search. That's going to be widespread news. They're trying to get investors, right? So somebody in the colonies, okay, the war is over, but there's still tensions between the British that are controlling Nova Scotia and the Americans now in their new country. They get wind of this fact that somebody's looking for a treasure on Oak Island and they're trying to get funding. So would it be wise at that point, if they had gone and taken some of this treasure out of there before the war to help fund the war, does it not make sense that somebody would have gone back there incognito or whatever to try to see what's going on? Did they find more treasure? What's going on? And
Yeah,
he would be a spy of sorts to go and take a look.
And to Seth's point, if it was any kind of old Templar treasure, Templars were the bankers, right? So they could have said, well, how much do you need for your little expedition? Well, go dig this much up. It's here. And not told them where the rest was. And they came back later for the remainder.
Right. Yeah. Right. Maybe there was just one vault that they were
only given permission, like you say, Seth, they were only given one location.
Yeah. Now I know I'm going on a limb here.
Well, that's the fun part.
Why not?
But it is fun. But how else? I mean, try to explain. I'm going to ask you of the chat. Why else has anybody else thought? Why a coin from 1800 that has the face that's commemorating someone who was fighting against the British, who are in control of Nova Scotia? Why would that coin be there? Why would somebody? That's almost like if somebody found you with that there. That's almost like a death sentence. I mean,
oh yeah, well, yeah, you'd be a spy.
Absolutely.
I think it speaks. It extends the multi-generational use, where of the common thread of all these different times and people, as whether they call themselves Templars or Knights of the Rosy Cross, the knowledge that they are sharing and hiding and storing and putting into the thing stays the same, right? So I feel like it the only thing, the main connection that blares out to me is, George Washington was a prominent Mason. Someone had that who was a Freemason who also had ties to Nova Scotia, because maybe those ties are stronger than your new nation, ties, or to the crown even. So
here's another one for you. Again, Kat brings up a good point, and Jeff and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, and it was Kat's idea from Discord last night.
Okay. Yeah. So what about the War of 1812? Okay, the British came up into the Maritimes. They were, you can find plaques and historic all over the place here. Different places where the British tried to come in. The British tried, or the Americans, sorry, tried to land. And what if they came up here? They're not going to bring their initial search party into downtown Halifax.
No,
they're going to need a staging area. And remember, Oak Island was rumored a long, long time ago to maybe be a staging area for some form of military. Well, what if the same people that knew where to go to get the treasure to fund the revolution also had the map of, hey, you want a cool place to hide out? I can show you where to go. They would have known how to get to the island. They would have known the channels. They would have known the surrounding islands, what was there. If you need a cool place to go to hide out, I got the place.
Yeah, I mean, that can be the only reason in my mind, or a couple of reasons like that somebody would have been on Oak Island that had that commemorative coin on.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't lose it. Maybe it was like you said, where they were like, "Ooh, I got to toss this,"
or they got found.
They get in a skirmish
into the swamp,
or they get in a skirmish and they didn't make it.
Ripped it off his neck, threw it in the swamp, and he went to sleep with the fishies.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. You just think about why else would it be there? How could this coin have gotten there, knowing that it was a death sentence to have it on you? You're a spy. I don't know. I mean, that was taking quite a risk to even have it on your person.
Because the people that were here that settled on these islands and that part of Nova Scotia, they were United Empire loyalists. They were basically expelled from the United States. So anybody coming up from the United States was not going to be your friend.
Yeah.
So the other thing we didn't touch on too is and they touched on it last night was the Duke d'Envie.
Mm-hmm.
Could some of this have been his treasure, right? Because the French, didn't have a whole lot of love for the British, right?
No, and they were helping the Americans to,
and they were helping the Americans
against the British.
And he was here, what, 1746, 1750, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to dig deep tunnels and cut down trees. And, he sent guys to other islands, 50 men to cut down trees.
Yep.
Oh, you want some steaks? You need trees? I don't know.
Yep.
So there's a multitude of possibilities there.
Yes, there is. All right. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of fun to go down that road. Now we are going to get to the thumbnail too. We're going to get to that here in just a second because I've got I want to kind of follow along with some more of the show here as it was prevailed. But we're going to get to the whole lot 8 boulder thing going here in just a bit. All right. So let's continue on. Now we're at the war room. They met in the war room, and they're meeting, and they're there to talk about. And I was trying to get a good look at that map on the table there, but I just couldn't see the words on it very clearly. It's an item map.
Yeah, those are. I blew that up a little bit.
Yeah,
those are key items and locations with approximate dates.
Yeah,
it's kind of like their little. Here's what happened here. Here's what happened here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Joanna Richardson's. Thank you very much. And Ned Fry. Thank you. Appreciate you guys helping to support the show. I really do. That's very kind of you. So they're meeting with Emiliano, and on screen over here, they've got Professor Gaspani and his interpreter, and of course, Craig and Marty coming in from Michigan on the screen there. Now, if you remember, Professor Gaspani, he was the one that was talking about the alignment for Nolan's cross and how it was taken from Cygnus, and as above, so below, and he kind of dated the alignment of Nolan's cross, dated it back to about 1200, and said that's about the time it was created based upon celestial alignments of everything at that time. Align the stars, Craig. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Align the stars, indeed. So, and this is one of those subjects. I mean, maybe Tom, you or Seth are much better, or someone in the chat is much better at understanding this stuff than I am. We know that that the stars were very important for navigation and everything back in that day. They didn't have phones and games and whatnot to play, so they were looking up at the stars quite often, trying to figure out how they could utilize them, and different things about the stars. That was a very important aspect of their life. But now,
just to back up, Jeff, for a second, those were they're putting things like Nolan's cross and the stakes, and they're marking different things and different dates. Around the islands, what they've found. It's basically an artifact.
Okay, so that's what that laying on the table there is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Nolan's cross and wooden stakes and stuff like that, and approximate dates. Yep.
Yeah, when I tried to shoot in on it, it just got too blurry to really.
Blurry, yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, sorry.
No, thank you. So this time they're talking about these stakes. Now we know that Steve Guptill is brought out every time they find one of these, and he comes out and he marks it with his GPS and gets its elevation and to sea level and everything else, and its exact position where they found it. And now, one of the things that Professor Gaspani had said and I was questioning this last night in Discord, was, have these stakes actually been C14 tested? How old are these things? Do we know? And they said on the show last night, it looked like they were talking about the fact that they are 13th century, so they would be 1200s. And I thought, man, that's a long time for the muck and mud and soil of the swamp to preserve something that long. I mean, going back that far.
Well, I mean, Spooner found that stick up underneath the platform that was 1200.
Exactly.
So
yeah, so it is
the leather boots. The leather that they found in the northern swamp, if it comes back with any kind of a date on it, that's verifiable. We're talking 1150 and up 1400. So it's doable.
That's the leather that they found on the show last week. And it did get dated. Now, that was the preliminary
Preliminary. That's
C14
what I'm
testing,
saying.
and they were going to go back and do it again, like Tom was just saying. But the preliminary dates were, 1170 to 1216, something like
Mhm.
that, and that was the high percentage.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they're worried about, oh, well, what if we clean it up and the dates come back, more modern? What if they clean it up and the dates come back even earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Right, that's a double-edged sword, right?
Right. Yeah.
It could go either way,
Or
it could verify the same results.
exactly. And that's kind of what it's exciting nonetheless. And that is only one more of the pieces of evidence from that has been found in the swamp that dates to about 1200 or in the early 1200s.
Yeah, the platform, the road,
Yeah.
so much of it is all in that time period.
Exactly. And then you got Professor Gaspani dating based upon the celestial alignments
Hmm.
of 1200s as well.
That's pretty cool how they do that. I mean, I don't know how they do it. I can follow the logic behind it, where stars are certain times of the year, certain times of centuries. I can follow the logic behind it, but literally it's all over my head. So.
It kind of goes beyond me. I know it has to do with all these alignments. They do the same thing with the pyramids. And
yeah, well, I feel like they're all about as above, so below, making the heavens kind of in the earth touch, right? So it's not just to track the dates, but it's a living calendar. It's the rituals they can see in the skies, and it's like kind of like the cross. It's like a symbolic. The way that the sun will hit the cross and move from the bottom stone up, it's like a symbolic resurrection.
Yep.
So Deneb, all the stars and all those alignments that he's talking about, those are all like, from Sirius to Deneb, the Pleiades. That's the story of the resurrection. So
exactly.
it's to them, they're creating this living lodge. I don't know if lodge is more of a Freemason thing. Maybe it wouldn't have been, but it's like this living temple, initiatory temple, a holder of the relics. So
holy place.
Yeah, so the 1200s, when they're doing all this work, it's important to them because they are going to be here, and it's going to be a temple to store these items, right? And that's what and then you have the swamp, and you cover it with water and make it a perfect triangle. And and then from the eye, can you see all these alignments, over the waters? And all these alchemical things, and go way over my head as well. But yeah, it's not just like to track, oh, there's the sun, cool, it's getting that time of year again. It's a living story of what their religion was played out in the heavens for them by God, and they were bringing that down to earth.
Yep.
So if you were going to use these stellar alignments to create a Nolan's cross, okay, and you had to go back to the island 50 years later, 100 years later, whatever the cycle is for these stars to reappear in the same spot. If you go back and that's not that particular era where those stars are going to appear in that same spot, you need a map on the ground to show you what direction to go in.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is find the island, right? And there's our star chart in the ground.
Yeah.
Because we know off of certain stars, we have to go certain angles or go certain distances.
Yep.
But if they're not in the right spot over your head when you go there, it's useless.
Yeah. You
So
could be off a mile.
As above, as below. There's your star chart on the ground.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was talking about at the beginning with the title of the show, Raising the Stakes. It really made me think of like we're raising to the heavens, the work that they're trying to mirror the heavens, right? And trying to mirror the story of Christ and resurrection. And whether they're talking about, the actual resurrection, or they're talking about their own alchemical resurrection, that those secret society esoteric folks like to talk about. That's what struck me when he said Deneb and the swan and Sirius. I was like, the swan is purity. And anyway, and then Sirius, where it sets with what was it, Hamal? When that sets, that's like that shows like the death, right? Because it goes below. Anyway, sorry. Like you said, it's just there's so many levels and layers. Where I'm like, I need like a Edwards and Jake to be like, here's
Kevin says it takes 26,000 years for stars to return to the same position. So yeah, you need something on the ground. You need a better map.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, and they created it on the ground. Now, what they've done is they've taken Guptill's marking, his GPS markings of these stakes, and they've kind of laid it out here. And this isn't exact here, folks. This is Prometheus's put this together. But it kind of gives you an idea of where they are and where they go. Now, the ones that they're concerned with, they got these down here in the lower portion of the swamp. But you also have these up here in the upper portion, and that's the ones we're going to be talking about here next. Here they are here. This is up towards the top of lot 10. And you follow these stakes along, and they've got them all marked out here. Now, it's hard to look at on this and kind of get an idea of exactly what you're doing. So they came up with this. Now, here you've got a couple of different lines, and this to me kind of, and again, without knowing these exact markings, and these are his exact positions for these. They came up with these two lines based on this here, these two lines here. Okay. The 30 northern swamp stakes, 30 of them, NSS appear to be divided into two groups. NSS group 1 aligned with the setting of Deneb, or whose rising is the target of the lot 5 stone feature.
There you go.
Also,
we talked about that before. Yeah.
yes.
More coming on that, by the way. There's more coming on that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then you have NSS Group 2 strongly suggests that the stakes may have been designed as a tool for mapping and planning. Yeah. The rising of Sirius, the setting of Hamal, and the Pleiades. It is, and again, I have to go with what Professor Gaspani says on this because this goes over my head. I am not somebody who studies this type of stuff. So
I don't have the time, the energy, or the mental capacity to do that. So
yeah, nor do I.
I'll take the man at his word.
Yeah, you have to. And again, he's coming back with the same alignment dates of the 1200 based upon these stakes.
I mean, they were preparing for something, right? They were getting this ready. Yeah.
Now there's the cross in the Milky Way, how it shows up in the Milky Way there in the night sky. You can see it there, and then there it is laid out with your these are your cones that are laid out on Nolan's cross, cone A, C, B, C, D, and E, of course. And then the headstone was right in the center. That's the one right there on Nolan's property, or right by the house, I should say, by the shed. Deneb being the brightest on the top. And so to the 13th century, we can therefore conclude there was European presence on the island in the 1300s. Now, this, like I said, this is not his first item that was used to come up with this date. It's his second one. He used Nolan's cross, and now he's using the alignment of these stakes, which, is just crazy, is it not?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, everything from the cross to all the other boulders to the swamp itself, they're all in alignment and point us not just around the globe to important sites, but to important symbols in the heavens. These dudes were crazy smart and capable.
I don't know how they came up with all that stuff, honestly.
Yeah. And for someone in today's time to be able to look at it and go, oh, this would have been this date. That's equally mind-blowing as well.
Yep. So, okay. Now that's just Professor Gaspani's talking about things in the 13th century, 1200s. To be there. We've had many others, like we mentioned earlier, the stick that was found crushed inside the rocks of the platform that was carbon dated the 1200s. You've got items that were taken from the stone road that crossed the southeast corner of the swamp that were dated,
which was also thought to be of Portuguese construction. Portuguese Templars.
Okay, yes. So
they were big sailors.
Who would have gone there back then and done all this work? It wasn't Mi'kmaq. It wasn't the native indigenous peoples to Nova Scotia and Canada that did this. They're not going to go through all that. They're not going to build.
They were basically seasonal visitors of different areas. They didn't stay in one place all the time.
Right.
They would have no need for large construction like that.
Yeah. Taking all those stones and building platforms and roads and stuff. And no, they would not have needed that. So, it just folks, I know that, people say, well, where's the treasure? Where's the treasure? The history that's being changed here is part of the treasure in my mind. And we've talked about that many times, but it's just crazy. But the whole, again, this is significant to the story. That's why it's important. Lastly, they talked a little bit about this particular the cross, going back to Nolan's cross. So they were meeting in the around the war room table there, and they decided that they are going to take this main section from cone D and cone E, which are the last two you see here on this, and they're going to go all the way up to the headstone, which is right there by the house on Nolan's property. So this whole section here, they're going to go back all along that line, and they're going to look for more evidence and things. That's their next area of concern to really dig there. So
you take that, just reduce your picture down a little bit. Take the bottom stone on the cross, and moving towards the left, draw a line parallel to the cross of the cross.
Okay.
Where do you wind up?
You're
headed across lot 8.
Yes.
Roughly about the place where someone found a certain boulder.
Yes. Where somebody found a certain boulder. Yeah. So if you that's what he's talking about there, folks. And I've lost my pointer for some reason. Let me grab it back here. So if you take a line and you stay parallel to this line here, I think weren't you talking about the Kingdom Stone, which is down here? So the Kingdom Stone, if you look at the Tree of Life portion, that was Peter Amundsen, and there's been a few other people that have talked about this. You extend down here, and there's other stones that kind of go up the side, or other markers up the side over here and here. But you take the Kingdom Stone that Peter Emerson found for them, and you draw this parallel line to this. So something along the lines of this here. Parallel. Well, that's not very parallel. Sorry. No. But
you could use that cone. Was it cone E at the bottom?
Yeah.
Or the Kingdom Stone, and either one of those is going to put you, depending on how accurate we are, right? You're going to basically surround that boulder on lot 8.
Yeah, which is where we're going to go next. So I'm interested to see. So the swamp has had numerous answers to it, and I'm really looking forward to see what they come up with next. But so yeah.
You know what I really liked? I don't know if the show has ever done it before, but they showed the swamp with the like all-seeing eye,
and
the pyramid overlaid over it, and I was like,
all-seeing eye right there, and then you've got your triangle, which is like the pyramid triangle, like that, with the all-seeing
triangle on the
stone. On our dollar bill,
the triangle on a stone.
Or the triangle on a stone. We're going to get to that right after our next little segment, which is the giveaway.
And did y'all notice too the what was it? The Cygnus is called the summer triangle. Triangles. Yeah, that constellation's the summer triangle. Or
all of these
the acorn stone parts. Yeah, Michelle Chomeyer just talked about the summer triangle as well.
Yeah, the acorn stone. Yeah. Okay, so let's do a giveaway, because we got the boulder coming up next, and I can't wait to get underneath this thing with what's coming up, because it's going to be,
uplifting.
Yeah. All right. So this is what we got for our giveaway tonight. It is this nice chook or toboggan or knit cap, whatever you like to call it from your area. What do you guys call them there in chook?
Yep. And they're nice too. I've got one.
It's a beanie.
A beanie, whatever, and these gloves from the Curse of Oak Island treasure shop, and also I'm not sure where the gloves came from. Were they also? I don't think those were.
I don't know where Michelle got those for sure.
There's Nova Scotia, but Oak Island, Nova Scotia, but really cool stuff. That's what we got for our giveaway tonight. Now, to be eligible for the giveaway, you need to be a member of our Facebook group page, The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. There's a link for it down below in the description. Linda will put out a post showing the picture of the upcoming episodes giveaways, and all you have to do is comment on that post and say yes, and you will be entered into the spin that we're going to do here in just a few minutes and give these away. And you need to be present at the podcast to win. Yes.
Did you notice all the triangles on the palm of the glove?
Oh, there is a lot of triangles on the palm of the glove. Yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
Those are all those little things that allow you to use your phone.
Yeah, see all that? Look at that. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Triangles all abound. Okay, so Linda's going to do the spin for us, and then we'll have if your name comes up, please shout out right away that you're here, and then we'll get your information. If the person that gets the spin is not present, we'll spin again until we get a winner. So that's how that works.
Well, I'm going to tease you just a little bit because we have a really cool giveaway next week from Maya.
Oh,
Ooh.
Okay.
You don't want to miss it.
All right, good. All right, well, hang in there.
I'm not feeling well. I might not make it to work next week.
Yeah. That's what Seth does. Is he bows out one episode. So
Last season it happened. Yeah, one of
It
the
did
one
happen.
episodes I wasn't in. I thought, well, let me enter, and then
Yeah,
I won, and I was like,
yeah.
I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. Oh,
I haven't answered any anymore.
yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
If you want.
We'll get you in solo
No.
layout here, and you can do the spinneroo. All right.
Okay.
Man, that wheel.
And by the way, Linda does a fantastic job moderating for us, and she does that for us every single week, among all of her other duties. Wow, Stephen Menschel. Is that what I see there? Stephen
Yep.
Menschel. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Stephen, we hope you're here. Please shout out right away to let us know. There is about a 15-second delay, so it might take a moment for him to.
Yep. He's new and yeah, I think that's his actual name.
All right, because sometimes we find out that a person's name in Facebook, where we get the names for the giveaway, are not the same as what they have in YouTube. So let us know if you have a different name. Yeah, there's a big list of a lot of people that have different names. Well, he says, I'm here. Is this what do you think, Linda? Are you
That's
buying?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
That's him.
There you
All
go.
right.
We have a winner.
Congrats.
Good. Steve, if you will private message me your address, I will get this stuff sent out to you probably Friday.
All right, fantastic. All right, congratulations.
All right.
Yep, just see Big Brother right there. Hi, Big Brother.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
See y'all.
All right. Okay, so we got our winner taken care of. All right, now let's get digging into this boulder, shall we? Yeah. So right on the show, on the episode, and you know how much that Marty has been talking about, what's got to be done so we can pick this thing up. I want to pick this.
Yeah.
We got to lift this thing. He's been very adamant about getting this thing picked up. Okay, well, they're on their way finally to go to the site to pick up the boulder.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I need to air a grievance here because Marty asked, he said, I have a question for each of you. What do you think's under the boulder? And they told us what Craig thought, and then they got out of the car, and I didn't get to hear what Rick said. So thanks a lot, Prometheus. I bet it was really interesting what Rick had to say.
Yeah.
But I thought, wait a second, go back. What did Rick say? But
I would have been interested to catch that as well. That would have been very interesting. Yeah.
I'm just joking. It was just, I don't need to know everything.
Well, next time we talk to Rick, we'll tell him.
Yeah. Hey, right. What did you tell Marty in the car?
Yeah. One of the things that we've been really kind of trying to figure out, Tom and I, we love to work on these positions. And there's some very interesting alignments that Tom and Henry DeWitt have been working on. They've kind of dragged me into this a little bit. And now we went out, we lassoed Zane, and we've
this rabbit hole's plenty big for everyone. Yep.
Yeah. Some alignments that we're going to be showing you soon. So hang in there.
Waiting for Zane to work some of his.
Yeah, Zane's going to do some magic for us because he's the CAD guy. He puts all that stuff together. So, but Zane's going to be helping us. But all right. One of the things we've been wondering about, where exactly on lot 8 is this boulder? Because they haven't really been that clear on exactly where it is. The only thing we have that we've really had to go on was when they show us these particular map. And again, this is not an exact location, but they've been putting this red dot, in this particular spot on lot 8 every time they say, oh, okay, going over to lot 8, and the next day over on lot 8 or whatever. But here we see where they put in this new road right here.
That's the new road.
And there is the lot 8 boulder, right?
There's a clearing. They had to clear a spot for the crane to,
Yeah,
do its thing.
to get, yep.
But we can verify that that's the road because when they show the crane backing in last night, that little
right
birch
here,
tree next to the road down there,
right here.
same tree.
Yeah.
So that's where they back the truck in.
Yeah, so that's where they back the truck in. So it is pretty close, where they're putting this dot is pretty close to that spot. So now we're trying to work on some little bit better alignments here to figure things out, but we're looking at this line. So when they showed this episode 14, they had a little diagram showing this line going from this path that they've been following on the north end of the bog or swamp, coming over to lot 5. It does kind of seem as though where they follow the curvature of the path going right across the boulder on lot 8
or close to it, one or the other.
Close to it, and also the marker stone that they found on lot 5. So is that exactly where it is? It's close. It's very close. Okay. Why is that important? We'll show you coming up when we talk more about alignments. Stay tuned. All right. I also had a shot of that looking at the spot where the boulder is right there. Kind of right almost in the middle of the lot, quite honestly. All right. There's a overhead look at it. Now they've got this road built in there and they're fixing to actually this picture, they've already moved the boulder out of there. You can see this black hole right there. Here's the road they had to build, come in here so they can come in and get it and pick it up. And there they are about ready to they're backing the crane in now to get ready to pick this thing up and lift it up out of its hole. So you can see where they've done this road. They threw this tarp down because some of this material from the road, the gravel, is spilling down the hill into where the boulder is. And they didn't want it to, get into where they're working, where they're doing all their archaeology work. So they threw this tarp down. That's the only reason why it's there at this point, so it doesn't damage the site. Okay. Everybody's there waiting for this thing to happen. And there's the crane coming in, getting ready to pick it up.
There's your birch tree beside it. Yep.
Yeah. Here's that birch tree back there laying on the ground that they showed earlier. And this was just looking back real quick episode. They showed this real quick, and this was some of the soil samples that were taken out from underneath that boulder in the front of it there, if you want to call that the front, where they took all these. I'm curious to see exactly what is all in this stuff. I don't think we've got that analysis back.
I wonder if that was the lead that he was referring to.
Well, that was, remember when he shoved that clear probe tube in?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
And then he came back and said there was a lot of lead in it.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
That's
that
what sense. I got on that. Right. Now here is that stone. Here's the thumbnail that we used for last night's episode, or what I'm using for tonight's episode here on the podcast. This was, I think this picture was sent over by a Wayne Ellis. You want to describe this?
Similar picture that Wayne, actually it's kind of a long story, but we'll keep it short. Wayne Ellis, who's a group member, and Henry are metal detecting pals. Anyway, he sent this picture over to Henry and said, have a look at this. Like somebody told me, and back and forth. Do you see a triangle here? So Henry sent it to me and I said, yeah, I can see a triangle. So I just drew the yellow triangle on there and sent it back to them. I said, look, Wayne, you want to post it or not post it? And he said, no, you go ahead and post it. But anyway, the idea came to us through Wayne. So that's how we got it.
If anything, folks, is screaming about Zena's map right now and talking about the mark on there of it's the Le Triangle deck. And I know I'm probably not saying that the way it would be spoken in French, but it was transcribed at one point on Zena Helpern's map as the December triangle. I think that's where they got deck from, and they said, well, that's December.
December is how you say it in French, but yeah.
Yeah. But it was also kind of translated as the God triangle. And so, it's used very much in Freemasons and Masonry, the Masons, the triangle. But, this boulder is almost smack dab. Now, remember that Zena's map, we've talked about this before, was probably hand drawn by somebody either copying the original map that was there I don't think it is the original map, but I
No.
think he's
I
copying
don't
it.
think it's a copy. I think. Yeah.
And so the marks on it are guesstimations of where these are on, these points on the island. Many people have said that Xena's map is crap. It was a fake. It came up. Some guy drew it and threw it in the back of this book for Xena to find. It's really not true. But I tell you what, folks, the more things we are finding on Oak Island that lend credence to her map, it's unreal.
Put it this way: if it was fake, somebody had to know where a lot of stuff was on Oak Island.
Yeah, they knew more information to be able to make that fake than what
Mhm.
was known,
Right.
Yep.
At the time. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, even if
Mhm.
it's a fake, it's whoever.
How did
It's
they know
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know about some of these things that are on they're finding that kind of go along with their map. They didn't know about these until they were found recently on the island. So how would they have known to draw them on the map?
Oh yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Irv said triangle equals Trinity. Now that I don't know, but that may be very well the
Yeah.
case. Thank you, Irv. Trinity.
Yeah.
You know what the Trinity, Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's where you get the triangle from.
Yeah, and especially an equilateral triangle.
Yes, an equilateral triangle, because it's all one. The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit is all one. So is that I wrote on the it's just a coincidence. Yeah.
Right, Coach. I saw that. Right. All just a coincidence, guys.
Well, once you see this, I mean, once this and Tom had taken this, he's the one that put the yellow triangle on there and put it on our Facebook group page. Now it's kind of gotten filtered around the internet a little bit. But folks, I'm telling you, once you see this, you can't unsee it. You really can't. And if this boulder happens to be sitting in the spot where Xena's map says the Goddess triangle or the December triangle is located, and yet now we kind of see a triangle on the top surface of the rock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me ask the chat. Do you guys see a triangle there, or are we just matrixing? And my brain is trying to make sense of, that's matrixing is where your brain tries to make sense of something that's
a pretty hardy rock. I don't think that those are natural wear lines.
No. I think that the original carved triangle on here has been worn down. This was the top of the boulder. And if it's been sitting there, we don't know how long this boulder's been sitting there yet. They have not dated, they have not given us a date for how long it's been sitting there. But if it's been sitting there for a couple hundred years of rain and storm and snow and ice, it's going to wear that boulder down. It's going to wear down that triangle. But yeah, we see there a lot of people are popping in going, yes, I see a triangle.
Yep. The other thing you can see in that too, if you really use your imagination, remember we were talking about that stylized Mason A?
Yes.
If the top of that triangle is the top of the A, look just down there about a foot, you can see the line going across.
Yeah, Tom is talking about, like if you took this, and then you did like a little.
Yep.
This
could also be what they call them, protractor. You know what they found out in lot 15 or 25, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of things, but it's definitely a shape.
Oh, there's definitely a shape there. I mean, it's undoubtedly a shape, and I the God triangle. Yes, it's the Trinity all in one.
Yep.
So there you go. I mean, that's what I mean. We still got some more to cover here, so don't go away. But I'm telling you, this. I don't know. This really screams out a Mason symbol. Yeah. Thanks.
But that's one of those things, if you didn't know where to look or what you were looking for, if you were standing right next to that rock, you'd never see that.
Exactly. And
unless you knew what you were looking for.
Right. So if any of the folks from the island are watching, and we know you do from time to time, or Prometheus, tell them about this. Mention it. If you let me know if you have not seen this for yourself, because it takes a drone overhead picture to actually see it. Evan would approve. Zombie Driver says Evan from the etched on that stone. Evan would approve. Yeah. So The podcast watchers are in Vegas. Yeah, you're all in Vegas right now, or several of them are, right?
Well, that's cool.
Right, Pete. They may not have mentioned it because they may have not noticed it. But I mean,
or they just haven't told us about it yet.
yeah, or they've seen it and it just hasn't come out on the show yet. Yes, that's it. Yes, we're going there.
Very curious about that. Yeah,
that's my cuz Richard right there.
Yeah,
yeah, and there it is.
Mhm.
Look at that. That we pointed this out last week right there, but this right here, this cut, that's
definitely
been chiseled.
That's definitely man-made.
We had a better look at it last week, but you can see like a chisel here, a chisel there. This has been chiseled into that, and it almost looks like an arrow. If you look at this, look at it close. All right. Do you not see a line here, and then a
this side down?
This side down? Yeah.
Or look here.
Look underneath. I mean, let me take that away and you tell me, do you see a point there? A pointer?
Find the rock with the triangle and follow the groove.
Yeah. As above, on top of it, so below, underneath it. I'm telling you, folks, this boulder, when we were there, and I know I mentioned this before, but I think there's a lot of new people watching the podcast here tonight. I'm going to say it again. When we were at the Oak Island convention last September and we were talking, we had Fiona was there, we had Laird was there, we had Ian Spooner and Matt Lukeman and Scott Barlow and Doug, and so many people were there from the island. And they were abuzz about something that they had just uncovered that was so important to them that Laird said this could change, very possibly change how he looks at all of this stuff in relation to there being a treasure or people on the Oak Island from years ago.
Yeah,
it was rocking his world.
They asked Rick today at this thing that they're at with Vanessa out in Vegas about the Lot 8 boulder, if it's been decided yet, and he said no, still not decided.
Yeah. They were abuzz about something, and this boulder was it. The timing of it, they were all excited. You know, when we were on the tram tour, Christine and I were on the tram tour, and they said, you cannot take any pictures. They were showing us something opposite Lot 8 on the center road, and they said, you cannot take any pictures of Lot 8 with that direction. Well, okay, I did not, but I was looking, trying to see what it was, and there was too much of the trees were in the way. Really, I could see the road that they made to drive back there and pick this thing up, but I couldn't see down there to see what it was. It was so exciting.
Yeah,
this was it.
And to Michelle's point, yeah, I was watching it today, and they were asked what, and it was like they just looked at each other and went, "No, we're not saying."
Yeah. Look at the point on that thing. Look at the mark, the point of this. That was what. And I got to admit, when this thing was first picked up, I was a little disappointed, and I'll show you why. But look at the bottom of this thing. What's on the bottom? This was in underneath, on the bottom. You see all the brown, dark brown right here. This was all the portion of it that was in the ground, or, I would actually say laying suspended in the rock bed that it's in.
Yep.
But what's that? I mean, is this something here?
I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping they roll this thing over and look in the bottom of it, because I want to see what this is.
Yeah.
It could be some sort of.
I was surprised. I was really expecting to see it all charcoal burnt. I thought maybe that had been used as some sort of a smelter or kiln or something in there.
It sure seemed that way when they were looking at the stuff that was underneath.
Not now. Because that would be black to this day if it ever, was burnt.
But it looks. It does look something like maybe I don't know. I could say a cross or anything. Like Red Leg says there. But I mean, it looks like there's something here. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there's nothing there. But if there's something carved on the top of it, maybe there's something carved on the bottom of it. And we know on the one end that there's that line with the what looks like an arrow pointing down. Folks, this thing is significant to this story. I'm telling you right now. Whether the date may be early on back in the 1200s, or maybe it's in the 1600s, doesn't matter. This boulder is important to the story.
Mhm.
I'm going to say it, and I may be wrong. I've been wrong before on some of the statements that I've made, but like that. But I think I'm pretty sure on this one. This thing is important. Now, when they first picked this up, now look at this hole here. When they first showed that, I was like, that's not what I wanted to see underneath this.
Hmm.
That's not what I was expecting to see underneath this. It looked like just dirt. That it wasn't anything significant down there. But as we go through this particular episode, we start to see more. Here's another picture looking underneath it as they picked it up. Just looks like dirt under there. We know that there was all those stones around the outside it was up against those stones. They were wedged in there hard, kind of holding it up. And we know that it wasn't sitting flat on this dirt down there because they were able to put a camera probe underneath there and look all around underneath it.
Well, also Laird commented how easy it came out of the ground.
Yeah.
If you didn't know the means by which man could move these rocks, and you were like this initiatory into this like new group of knowledge, and they were like they took you to this island and they were just showing you, look, the people who carried this knowledge and taught us, they moved these stones, they did this, that's just this is 40,000 pounds.
Yeah.
That's in and
20 tons. Yep.
Yeah, they had to build a road.
Mm-hmm.
They had to cut down trees. They had a huge, what was it, 90-foot crane?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the road they had to build to put that crane in there.
Yeah, and even if they dragged this rock, that's still impressive. And then how did they make such a perfect cradle for it? Did they make the cradle and then drop it in, or did they like roll it, get it exactly how they want, and then kind of prop it up to get so cradled perfectly? Because that was what impressed me when they lifted it up. I was disappointed there wasn't gold, but it just looked so perfect to hold that stone. Like it was designed for that shape right there almost. Did they design that cradle before or after they moved the stone is what I want to know. Because there was no resistance, like Jeff said. Laird we didn't hear any, like no other rocks crashed.
No, Laird said there was
nothing
no resistance.
Tumbled down.
No. Basically, it wasn't stuck in the ground.
100% without a doubt man-made.
It was just sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just sitting there. But
like a setting on a ring. Exactly, Giselle, is perfect.
Yeah, like it was sitting on a ring. But hold that thought, because I think there's more to it than just a ring. And okay, so we're going back to the shape of this bottom here. It would have been really, really hard to try to roll. I don't know, but how else would they have moved it? By dragging it, by rolling it, maybe by rolling it into its position. But
you could put it on that stone road, if that's where the stone road was, right? And you could oxen, wintertime, skids, roll it up the road.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're going to be able to haul. I think they had to put it in position and basically tip it or roll it into position.
Yeah.
Have your spaced rocks with your platform, and then you cut out the platform underneath it, and it sits on the rocks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just amazing feat.
Yeah.
And someone in the chat said ancient knowledge of levitation. Sometimes I wonder.
I don't know. That takes us onto a whole nother show, going over to Beyond Our World podcast. Mm-hmm. So
there's an idea too, right? Someone said that old timers would set stones in ice.
Oh.
And then the stone would settle when the ice melts, right?
Settle itself into its place.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I like I said, I was a little disappointed. But then I started to see some stuff. And Tom saw it too.
Yeah, I didn't see it. What'd you guys see?
Yeah, well, stand by. So Tom notes here what was said on the show, that the Lot 8 boulder, no sterile subsoil, no glacial soil, no glacial till underneath there. And the soils, those glacial till soils have been removed. This is all per...
all organic.
And all per Laird was saying all these things.
Yep. It's all organic. Everything that's in there everything that's in there should not be there.
Right. And you look at this stuff, it's not smashed, folks. It's not smashed. Now, if you had just a ring of stones around the outside, would those ring of stones be strong enough to keep it in position? I don't know. My brain, when they were talking about being able to put that that snake camera underneath there, and you saw the gap.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that gap when they were pushing that through there. There was a gap underneath there. So that boulder was not sitting all the way into the dirt, or they would never have been able to shove that camera. There would have been no way with a 40,000-pound rock sitting there, a boulder, you'd never been able to push that camera through underneath it like that. Okay, now what happened to all the things they saw? We don't know yet. The gold, what looked like gold, which I think wasn't gold, it was oxidation or something else that was very shiny or whatever.
It was in those 14 1-gallon bags that were sitting
Yes, the 14 1-gallon bags that were taken out of there. I guess those would be. I was asking Kat last night in Discord about those bags. I was saying, now we have the 1 gallon or 1 gallon bags here.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be in Canada? Would that be a 4-liter bag?
4.5 liters, yeah.
Yeah, 4.5 liter bag or something, whatever. So, but we know that there was. Where's that picture? Let's go back to it real quick. Right there. All those bags were taken and dug out from dirt that was underneath it, and they were taken off to be analyzed.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what comes of that, right?
So if each one of those bags, just to do rough numbers in your head, I'm a picture guy, right? So if each one of those bags was, say, the equivalent of 4 liters, so that's a 2 liter or a 2-quart jug of milk, right? So that'd be the same as taking 28 2-liter jugs of milk, and I mean that's a lot of space.
That's a lot of space.
Liters, quarts. You're talking a foreign language to me.
Right,
I'm just kidding. No, I saw Linda say
So
2 gallons.
14 jugs of milk.
Yeah.
There we go.
14 1-gallon jugs of milk.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
much space would they take up?
So that's a lot of dirt to go through, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know.
I'm going to talk bags of milk, that'll really screw you up. So.
Yeah, there was also that. Yeah, and the stuff that they said they were going to use a shop vac and shop vac some of that. We never saw any of that either. So
it's all in the shop vac.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. I'm sure they're going to talk about it at some point. And if they don't, I'm going to be making some emails. Not that gets us anywhere, but I'll be sending out some emails. What's going on? Where's the rest of that dirt? Because we are going to have Laird on the show. Now we're going to kind of wait until some of this gets.
Oh, we have to wait for it to settle. Yeah,
we have to wait for the dust to settle on this a little bit because they can't talk about stuff that hasn't aired yet. So we got to let this kind of air out a little bit so that we can have them on. Laird's coming on. Fiona's coming on. I've also had we're talking with some of the other folks that work in the lab coming on the show. So bear with us because we're going to try to ask them some of these questions. It may have to wait until the show is done for the season, but hang in there because we're gonna be able to ask a lot of questions about this. But now something that I was gonna get to when I talking about how I was disappointed when I first saw that, but Tom saw it too, and here's a point of it here.
Yeah,
rock
lined.
Okay, look at these rocks right here, folks. Right here, and they all kind of go. And they're all down here. These are stones, rounded stones. They look like they're rounded. I'm assuming they are. It'd be
interesting to see what they look like when they're cleaned off.
Yeah. And also, and here too, you see all these stones over here. Down here, here's another one. This is another one down here. They're all over underneath this. Okay. Now imagine that rock. Remember how when they showed the rock before, the boulder sitting there in the dirt, and those stones were evenly spaced around the outside. Okay, with gaps in between them. If this boulder was held up off sitting, so it wasn't sitting directly in dirt on the bottom, over the years of rain and everything else is going to wash some of that dirt down into this hole, and it's going to cover up in between the stones that it's sitting on. I think we're going to see them when they clear this off. We're going to see something spectacular.
They're also going to be covered too if somebody had already dug that hole out, like someone like a Samuel Ball who just happened to own Lot 8, and then fill it back in. Right? It's going to get filled up with stuff, organics.
Yeah.
So I'm really starting to think that we're going to see something spectacular here. I was disappointed at first, but now I'm like,
There's more to hear. There's more here to find out.
Let Fiona and her team really kind of clean this all up and see what they reveal.
Maybe it's another huge structure. That.
Yeah. When you look at how many rocks were around, remember they found all the rocks sort of like a little platform around the back side of the stone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Could that have been where they were building a road to haul it in on?
Could very well be.
I mean, look at the road they had to build to bring that 130-ton crane in. Now the crane doesn't weigh 130 tons, right?
No.
It's just capable of lifting 130 tons.
Correct.
But I would bet you that whole truck and crane is probably 15 or 20 tons altogether.
Yeah. Here you can see them again. Look right here, folks. Right there. And right here. All these right here. And when we saw the open area where they're sitting, actually, is where the open area was that Maddie Blake looked under, Rick looked under, Fiona put that camera down under there. So did Peter Finetti put that grave. I'm looking over here at grave. Could be a gravesite. I hope not.
That's what I feel like.
It could be. It could be.
When they first started going in there, I thought, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, that was my speculation. They're going to find
What
a
happens
body.
if they pull a bone out of there and it dates to,
Yeah, that was my guess on what Laird, the one thing that changed Laird's, from a 0%.
Here's another interesting tidbit
for
you.
An actual Templar.
Coach says could wind up being 13 feet across. Well, speaking of the number 13, Henry and I did a quick count the other day, just from the angles we could see. Those little support stones that go around the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
When you count them up, how many do you think there are?
13.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. It's
That's just the ones we could see. I mean, there's probably more than that, but
yeah,
just the ones we could see.
It's like whenever you're watching, like again, 13 colonies. Oh, the branch. Oh, there was 13 branches. Oh, okay. Oh, 33. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's yeah. But if it is a gravesite, who could it be? Is it Bacon?
Maybe. Look at there.
There you go. There's the 13 dots.
Oh, what a great picture.
That's where I was talking about the water, rain and everything washing down in between those stones and filling that, putting in some topsoil down there, covering up these stones that it's sitting on. So, I mean,
oh man, because Clint in the chat does have a scary thought.
What's that?
How do you ensure that many people who built something like this that would need to be kept secret do not ever speak of it? Mass grave, maybe? So they killed all the workers?
Yeah.
You're dark, Clint.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I mean, if you go back to, go back to the Templars or the remnant of the Templars and how they were so strong in their faith.
They were very secretive. Let's put it this way. There's millions of Masons in the world. And if you're not a Mason, can you tell me what they do in their lodge every night?
Yeah.
So they can keep a secret.
They can keep a secret. Yeah.
They're just becoming better men. I imagine they're just drinking some tea and
Diet Coke. Yeah.
And I'm not poking fun at them.
I like what Coach said there. Templars ain't saying anything.
No. My dad's a Mason, and whenever I'll talk to him, he kind of looks at me like I'm crazy. He goes, "You really think I would be involved in all that?" I go, "Hey, I don't know. You're the one." Anyways,
you're the one keeping the secrets.
Yeah, exactly. You tell me, Dad.
Yeah. So I'm really, really curious to see what they come up with.
Yep, Clint.
Master Mason.
Yeah. I think this was. I think once they get all this dirt that's washed down in here, I think once they get all this done, it's going to be spectacular to see what's under this thing.
Yep.
Under that dirt. So stay tuned for the show. I mean, I'm really excited about this. Now, this stuff that we saw under there was that one picture. It kind of looked like that one thing was a crushed piece of copper pipe or something.
Yeah,
it looked like it had been crushed under. And there was another one where somebody found what looked like a small railroad spike or a deck spike that was found in there. We don't know. Now they have the capability of getting in there. Now they did bring over, and they're actually looking up at in the next picture I'm going to show you, they're actually looking up at Ian Spooner, who's standing there. That's his case right there. And Ian comes out. There he is. Ian comes out, and he's bringing an XRF with him. And this is a really, really cool tool. You take and you scan the soil with it, and it will tell you the elements in that soil. It actually does a great job of pulling those elements out. And so he gets down there and he does his work. He's scanning, and preliminary readings on the unit itself say that he's picking up. He said, well, this I didn't get from the samples, which means he's tested those samples already. It seems like those bags that we talked about. Silver and copper detected And we know that they found lead in some of that when he actually put that tube and got a sample in that tube. That was checked, and it had 140 parts per million of lead in that soil underneath there. Okay. Normally, you'd get about 10, 12 parts per million of lead. 140 was what they were getting from here. What does that mean? I mean, that much lead. What purpose would they have for that much lead to be in there? What happened? Do you think that caused that much lead to be there?
I don't know. Was the lead in that soil, or was that soil brought from somewhere else and it contained lead?
Could be. It could be that. Yeah.
Was lead used to like protect the ark at all ever? Or like could lead be used for that? I mean, if we're going out there and
Wow. Okay, you went on a long limb there, but possibly. I mean, if the Ark of the Covenant was putting off as much radiation, I'm going to say in air quotes, that it would lead protect you from it? Yeah, probably. A lead line coffin?
Hey.
Fires is what they said. Yeah, right. So
alien power plants. Now you're talking, David.
I think the XRF does give you a little bit of a concentration, but he wasn't telling us that. Remember, he said when he looked at it, and he scanned several spots down there, and he logged each one of them in the machine itself. And then it's going to go to Emma, and the data is going to be analyzed to come up with some, and we'll see at some point, hopefully, we'll get to see what that analysis says of the scanning around those different points. So, yeah,
pretty exciting right away. Silver, right? Like,
yeah, silver, copper, and lead. I mean, that's the three things you got to have for the coins.
And rock lined.
Yeah, and I really like the way Fiona is, like, she seems all in with her questions where she was asking, okay, is that from there being silver and it left, or could there still be silver and it's leaching up? She wants to find that treasure.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Oh, now she's an archaeologist now. You know how they feel about saying treasure hunters. They're not treasure hunters. They dig up artifacts to tell a story. But so
the story is the treasure.
The story is the treasure. Yeah. You know what? I did not last night. They did show what's coming up next week, and honestly, I didn't get an opportunity to when I revisited the show, I didn't get any. It wasn't on there. It didn't show next time. But next week, they say, armed with new information about the elusive stakes in the swamp, the team redoubles their search efforts with thrilling results for next week's show. So
ready to be thrilled.
Just when you thought the story couldn't get any better.
Man, this last night's episode was great. I was really intrigued by this, and then having people like Mr. Ellis, Wayne Ellis, sharing stuff. And I've said this more times than you guys are probably sick of, but we have such intelligent people that watch our podcast and in our chat and commenting and coming up with ideas. And Wayne is just another one of them that was able to, they're looking at that stone, go, that looks a little odd. Send it to Tom to look at, and we go from there. I mean, it's just, and to come up with that triangle, which is again why I chose that for tonight's thumbnail. Yeah, the XRF does give amounts. Adam Savage goes into it on U.S. Park Service video with this unit. Yeah, we used to. Yeah,
I tried to zoom in on the little screen.
Yeah, I did too.
And you could see the I'm going to call them chemical symbols or minerals. The symbols FE and all that kind of stuff going down the side. And there was another strip of, I'm going to presume numbers
or something. Yeah,
next to it, but I couldn't get it to.
Yeah,
clear enough to actually see it. So I'm just presuming that's what it was, but
yeah, we used to rent those. I was in the safety industry, and we used to rent those things, and a lot of people would use them. They had them for finding lead paint and lead in paint in certain buildings and things like that. So it can detect all that kind of stuff from what it's scanning. Very interesting and very expensive tool. And I think Laird brought that one with him. They had that. So I don't think. I remember they were using one on the island some time ago before they got all the fancy equipment in the lab, and the lab was built. They did had one, and they were doing some scanning with it there in their makeshift lab that they had, and it was really cool. But now that they have all that equipment in there, man, being able to find the stuff, the answers to things so quickly, like that coin they found in the swamp, and then it dates to 1800. And again, we go back to the whole reason: how could it have been there? How could that thing have shown up? That's just crazy.
Yeah, the lab makes a huge difference. It really adds to the show and adds to the scientific nature of the show. It's like Marty says, I'm all about the science.
Yeah. I wonder which, if this truly is a triangle on the top of that boulder, which way is it pointing?
Where's it pointing to?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm going to have to take a look at that. I would have to say that if the road, it's going to be in a northerly direction of some sort, but we might have to figure that out. Zane, where are you? Zane, we can figure out based upon this scene right there. They're walking around, which I would say would be
behind them, even all the rocks that they've removed from that site already.
Yeah.
Could you not build a road in there with all those rocks?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was all the ones that they took out of this section down here. Here.
Well, not and all around the back of it.
Right.
When they dug it down. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And when they came in to pick it up, they were picking it up from this side, which would have been the southerly side of it. So I think it's pointing somewhat north. We're going to have to figure that out.
I think it is, yeah. I think it's got a northerly direction to it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Positioning of that triangle. I think that's Bass Man Midnight. Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah, it could be. Maybe it was. Maybe they were using something for a forge to make their lead bullets. I mean, we know that they did. They had those hunks of lead. Gary's found numerous amounts of hunks of lead and stuff like that. So,
yeah, and lead is something that's easy to reuse too, right? It's got a low melting point. You can make a multitude of things out of it. It's very pliable.
Yep. Yeah. So, Zane wasn't here tonight, but we're going to have to do some alignment. So like I said, stay tuned because at some point here when we get together with Zane again, Henry and Tom have just been working on these alignments of different things. Just be thinking about the different stones that that they found on lot 5 that they said was a marker.
Be thinking about the tree of life.
Yep.
And if you flip the tree of life 90 degrees and think about the different points on the tree of life and how they might relate to Zena's map.
Yes. Yes.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
If that's not enough of a tease right there. Yeah. Flipping the tree of life and different points from Zena's map lining up with points on the tree of life. Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we're going to have for you coming up. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We really appreciate you. And yeah, I tell you what, Kat, it was the court. Yeah, he was. Paul Troutman was there. Yeah. Not seen him for a long time. You're right. But yeah, Court Lindahl, that man, I tell you, he's the one who got me started off on this whole the Revolutionary War. Used the funds that were from the gold found on Oak Island or taken over from Oak Island. They all knew it was there. And that's why I think that Oak Island and Nova Scotia was very important to them at one time. But they lost it.
Is he still posting on his YouTube? I was watching it for a while. I haven't
He's
seen
working
it.
on some new research.
Time to time, yeah.
Yeah.
What's his YouTube called?
I link into it through his Facebook page.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks, if you haven't watched his videos, you should. Like Jeff said, his knowledge and ability to just recall names and link families and link all these. He's one of the best out there.
Portland is truly got some great information. He really, truly does. So, all right, folks, that's what we have for you here tonight. We appreciate all of you joining us. We had a big crowd tonight, and that was really great to see. I'm happy about that. But yeah, so if you like the content of the show we did here for you tonight, consider giving us a thumbs up if you would. And it's always good to pop in later and make a comment. Comments after we are live really count a lot in the YouTube algorithms, and so do those likes. And tell a friend.
We check them and we respond to them.
if you have any friends that are into the Curse of Oak Island, let them know about this podcast. Tell them to come check us out and see what we can offer, because we really try to do our best to get good information for everybody. And like I said, we will have some more interviews coming up. I hate to call them interviews. I just like to call them, having conversations with folks from the island. So yeah,
we're getting updates from them.
Yeah, as soon as we get some dates worked out. I know everybody's really busy right now. Fiona and even Vanessa Lucido and all that. They're going to be joining us, and we're going to have a good time with them. So stay tuned. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. All right. With that, I'll say goodnight, and we'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. And thank you, Jan, for the synopsis. Appreciate your hard work on that once again. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.